For being here. We have a great panel in front of you, so I'm going to keep the introductions very short so that we can get to any questions that you might have. But before I get into some introductions, I wanted to turn it over briefly for some welcoming remarks to the City Councilman Darius Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Thank you all for being here at New Destiny here in the 3rd Council District where opportunity lives. And I want to thank you all for coming out in this dialogue. Earlier today, literally hours ago today, President Barack Obama signed an executive order establishing the 21st Century Community Policing Task Force. And that is centered around many of the occurrences that have happened in our country, whether it's in Staten Island, New York, or in Ferguson, Missouri, or in Cleveland, Ohio. And so here locally in the city of Wilmington, we wanted to make sure that we had a conversation around some of the concerns that community members may have. And I want to thank Attorney General Bill Biden and all of his staff in the Department of Justice and all of those law enforcement representatives that are here, Police Chief Cummings, Chief Magistrate Judge Alan Davis, Judge Greg Sleet, and also our State Prosecutor Kathleen Jennings for your leadership in leading our conversation tonight. So again, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being in the 3rd District. Look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you. And before we begin, I'd also like to thank State Senator Townsend, State Senator Margaret Rose Henry. Thank you very much for being here. I also see Commissioner McDonough. Thank you for being here as well from the Court of Common Pleas. Apostle Weeks. Thank you. Apostle Weeks, this is a fantastic venue. We are very much in your debt. Thank you so much for having us and putting this on for us. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to make the introduction short because this is not certainly about me here on the podium, and it's not about the panelists here either. It's about the questions that you have and starting the dialogue as we were discussing. So with that, I'm going to have the just basic overview of how we hope this is going to be run today. Each panelist is going to give a brief introduction of who they are, what they do, just in case you don't know who they are. And then we're going to open it up to some questions. There are 2 microphones, 1 and 2, right here on the side. If, as you're doing it, if you come down, you have a question, please feel free to take a stand on either side of the microphone. I will do my best. To try to remember who was next in line. If I do not, you can be mad at me, it's okay. But let me know. I will try and do it as fairly as possible. If you do not feel like getting up to the microphone, or you do not want to talk at the microphone, we will have people with index cards. If you would prefer to write down your question, please do so. They will collect it and they will bring it up to me and I will ask the question to the panel. There is no filtering that is going to go up here. If you write your question, we will ask the question. Just a couple guidelines too, folks. Everyone here in this panel was asked to be here and without a moment's hesitation said absolutely. Because they want to be here, and us, everyone on the stage here, including yourselves, want the same thing. We want safer, better communities. So, when we are discussing these things, feel free to vent, feel free to express your concerns, feel free to do whatever you would like to do with the microphone. Just keep in mind that if I try to cut you short, it may just be for our time's sake, because we do have a hard deadline of 7:30 from the church that has an event going on here. We can continue the conversation outside, on the forum, not outside, out here, right? And the other thing is too, if you have questions that aren't answered here tonight, if you write them down with an email, I will make sure we get an answer to you. It may not, as you will find throughout this whole thing, sometimes the answers may not be exactly the ones that you want, but it's not so much about the questions and answers as it is the dialogue. Because some of the questions that are going to be asked, some of the things that we are trying to tackle, are not necessarily best made behind a desk somewhere. We have to start the dialogue. And I use the word start because that's what this is. That's what we hope it to be. So, regularly scheduled forums like this, perhaps the same panelists, maybe different venues, But the idea is we begin the conversation, we continue the conversation, and we are here to listen and provide you whatever answers we can. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I will turn to the panel. I will have them introduce themselves very briefly, and then I'll open it up for some questions so that we can get right into it and get as many in as we can. Thank you very much for being here. And if we could start, we have Chief Bobby Cummings from the Wilmington Police Department, Chief Magistrate of the JP Court, Alan Davis, U.S. Federal Court Judge Gregory Sleet, and Kathleen Jennings, who, in addition to being the state prosecutor, is also my boss. Okay? So when she leaves, then you can say bad things about me, all right? Folks, thank you very much for being here. I'm turning it over now for the panel. Chief, if you wouldn't mind just giving a brief introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and good evening, everyone. Briefly, I'll tell you who I am. I'm a native of Wilmington. I've been a police officer now for almost 30 years within the city of Wilmington, and currently I'm your chief of police. So I'll leave it there, and then we'll have more discussion.
I'm not going to use the mic because I never need one. So if anybody can't hear me, you need to tell me now. My name is Alan Davis. I am the Chief Magistrate of the Lower Justice and Peace Court, and I've been in that role for about 10 years. I am not a Wilmingtonian, and some people may ask, why does somebody who lives and is born in Sussex County care about Wilmington? And I'll tell you, it's because I have children. And people who are the children who live on Vanderbilt Avenue and 22nd Street deserve to be as safe and as secure as my children. And so, and my children's safety and security is as my children's safety and security is as linked to those on Vanderbilt Avenue as those who are on 22nd Street. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Good evening. My name is Gregory Sleet. I am also not a native of Delaware. I'm a native of New York City, and where I partially grew up and then did the majority of my growing up in Roosevelt, Long Island. You may know it as the birthplace of, well, not the birthplace, but the home of Julius Irving, Dr. J. So that's. I then moved after high school, attended Hampton University and Rutgers University School of Law. After a number of years in practice in Philadelphia, starting out as an assistant public defender in the Defender Association of Philadelphia, came to Delaware and initially joined the Attorney General's office. I was a deputy attorney general, and then went into a major corporation where I was in-house counsel in a major corporation, Hercules Incorporated. Then became the United States Attorney for the State and District of Delaware, and I'm currently a United States Judge. I have recently completed my term as Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court, and where I've been serving now for a little more than 16 years. So that's sort of my story in a nutshell.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Apostle, for inviting us here this evening for this so very important topic. My name is Kathleen Jennings, and I will not tell you how long ago I was born, but I will tell you that I was born on 14th and DuPont Street in the city of Wilmington. And for all of my years in elementary education, I would go down and get on the number 10 bus and take it to 10th and Madison Streets, where I would attend school at Sacred Heart Church, and then walk home. My friends all lived in the city. I didn't know there was a suburbs, quite frankly, until my mother married my stepfather and took me to Mount Pleasant, which was a far different environment for me. I have missed my roots since the day I left, and so here I am. I am committed to reducing crime in this city. It is our number one mission in the Attorney General's office. District attorneys' offices all over the country, and there are big ones, small ones, rural ones, urban ones, but the best in the country have expanded their mission, and it's not just prosecuting, although we must prosecute the people who are maiming and killing our citizens. That is our duty, and we do it. But it's beyond that. We have to collaborate with the police department, with community groups, with every one of you out here to reduce crime, because until we reduce violent crime in the city of Wilmington, we have not accomplished our mission. And I just want to take a moment to say who Dan Logan is. I think probably everybody in the room knows Dan, but he is the head of our Crime Strategies Unit, which has turned out in force this evening. They're seated in the audience with you. And the Crime Strategies Unit is not a prosecution unit in the Department of Justice. It has used money from the J.P. Morgan settlement funds to help rebuild neighborhoods, and that's what they do. They are out in the community every day because presence is one of the ways we can rebuild trust, to help communities, struggling communities, to make themselves better. So we look forward to answering your questions this evening and really to begin what we hope is a long dialogue and a fruitful one. Thank you.
Thank you. He doesn't want me too close to you. Folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off the questioning period. I'm going to start off with the first question, but at this time, the reason I'm going to start off with the first question, allow the panelists to answer those who want. A couple things. Not every panelist has to answer every question. They may not. The other thing, if there are statements that come up from the audience, you're welcome to do that. If you decide to give a statement, it's okay. I'm just not going to ask the panel to respond to that statement, okay? If you have a question, I think it's fair game, but if you want to just come up and say what you think too, that's all right, because we're here to listen as well. With that, the first question that I will pose to the panel involves a lot of the recent activity that we have been seeing. So, panel, in the wake of Ferguson and the events in New York, and most recently the Newsweek magazine, there have been a lot of passions, there's been a lot of frustration from the community. And if you could briefly go over some of the things that your individual office or your agencies are either doing, hope to be doing, or your general thoughts on the matter, that would be a good, so that we can avoid that type of scenario, or to avoid another Newsweek type article coming out. What are some of the things that we can do? And I'll start with you, Chief, if you don't mind. No worries.
I appreciate that, Dan. In terms of what's been happening around the country, and we look at Ferguson, one of the things I will say is that the Wilmington Police Department and our law enforcement community, for a number of years, have done things to enrich our partnership with the community that we serve. For a number of years, we've made contacts and connections where I don't believe our community is in that dire need where we would have those type of incidents. I'm not saying that these things could not happen, but because we've been out in the community, that we've built relationships, I think we're a little bit stronger there. As far as New York goes, again, it's about training, it's about tactics, it's about recognizing what's going on and understanding the individuals that you deal with. When you know what's happening in your community, you have a different response when you go and deal with those particular individuals, because you do have a background. So when we teach our officers, they learn a number of tactics and they learn how to make good decisions. And I'm not going to say that every decision they make is the best decision, and not that everybody's going to agree with it. And when we have officers who make bad decisions, we deal with them. And we make sure that we discipline our personnel and we train them constantly. That's one of the forefront things that we do, where we think we are way above what's happening around the country, because I've been around to different cities and I've listened to some of the training needs and concerns that go on. And sometimes I'm a little bit surprised to hear that the training issues that are coming up, it sometimes sounds like it's a new idea or a new revelation that has come up within their community. But I think we're a little bit ahead of that. And to get to the Newsweek article, sometimes I believe our city is treated unfairly based on our size and our per capita numbers. And when you look at the state of Delaware, we have a reporting system where 100% of our crime gets reported because we have a uniform system of reporting crime. And it's checked by personnel to make sure that information goes in accurately. When you look around the country, not every state has a uniform crime reporting system, so then they report as they see what benefits them. We don't try to hide any information that is happening within our city or state. All the information goes in. So based on per capita numbers, we are sold as this violent city. And when I look around our cities and I look around the different areas, any homicide, any violent crime is a negative issue. But when you compare our numbers truly to what's happening around the country, I think we're in a good position, because every time I've gone somewhere around the country and I come back to Wilmington, I'm so glad to be back home. So again, to say that we don't get treated fairly in the media. I know a lot of you live in this city. You're concerned about the issues, and any crime is a negative issue. And we're making every effort to change that perspective.
The judge is already taking charge. That's what they do. Wisely so. This isn't really a forum to sort of tout our accomplishments, but I want to talk about our objectives and where we are, because we can't do this without all of you. We have to target, as prosecutors, the most violent offenders and, frankly, take them off the street. We have to be laser beam focused on firearm offenses, and we are, because there are too many people being shot and killed. We work with the police on those investigations intensively, and we try to produce the best possible result for justice. But as all of you may have concluded, we can't also incarcerate our way out of this problem. It can't just be prosecute, because unless we are at the same time effectively reducing crime, we're just putting more people in prison, but not really getting at the root causes and trying to be part of the solution. And so the seed part of the initiative within the Attorney General's office is our Crime Strategies Unit. Crime Strategies was formed this year for the sole purpose of reducing crime by strengthening communities and improving the environments in which they live. It can be as simple as cleaning up the garbage on Gordon Street, which we did. And the city helped us clean the rest on the entire street. And for the first time, I drove down that street and it looked pristine. And there were a group of males who looked to me like they were retired, sitting out with an Eagles tent over them, enjoying a nice warm afternoon in a clean environment. It makes a difference. It brings people out. It may be that we're working with the city to fix the street lamps that are drivers of crimes. It may be that we're working with code enforcement officers in the city to fix all the code violations on a given street. It's the simple things. It's the environmental changes that need to be made that is what Crime Strategies is about. They do nuisance abatement. So if a neighborhood is frustrated with a house that has become a recurrent drug den and that is driving violence in that neighborhood, it's up to us to shut it down, because there is a point when neighbors say enough is enough. There are abandoned houses in this city that need to be either taken down or rehabbed, and we're working with others on that strategy as well. Matt Littner's here, he's the head of our fraud division. This is what his focus is right now. And so the environmental drivers of crime are an important way to reduce crime. Most important, however, is building trust between the community and law enforcement. And we do that by being out there. We do that by being honest, by being transparent, and by being present. And so we're not sitting at our desk all day. In fact, I never see the Crime Strategies Unit because they're out there each and every day trying to build that trust and trying to help communities rebuild themselves. So that's what we're doing. I should also mention that, and this is something that the court can and should contribute to in terms of discussion, that our Chief Justice on the Delaware Supreme Court, Justice Leo Strine, has kicked off the Equal Access to Justice initiative. So all of us in the system are taking a very deep, painful look at racial disparities in the justice system. It's something that has to be done, and it is being done. Senator Henry was with us at the kickoff, and that's going to take a while, because you can imagine we're studying all the courts, but it is essential that we have equal access to justice. Not justice that's based on how much money is in your wallet, not justice based on the color of your skin, but equal access for everybody. So those are the initiatives that pertain particularly to the prosecutor's office and to the justice system.
Thank you, Kathy. So judges and courts are our paramount concern is always about making sure that processes are fair. And the problem with that is, from the inside, you can figure that it looks fair from the inside. And there's the perception is the real issue. The perception of unfair or unequal treatment is the single most important source of unpopular dissatisfaction with the American legal system, I think. I think you're seeing it in what's going on across the nation. Kathy sort of stole my thunder a little bit, but the Chief Justice is very keenly aware of access to justice issues and has initiated that process. But interestingly enough, it's not necessarily the higher levels of the court that face some of the most significant challenges when asked if their procedures seem fair. I'm here because I run the court that has the highest volume of cases that run through it in this state, and it is the high volume cases or courts that have the most difficult job ensuring that those processes not only are fair, but that they appear fair. And the reason is because I'm constantly balancing these two factors of efficiency, because I have so many cases I have to deal with, versus what does it look like on the other side, and is the outcome actually fair? To that end, our court embarked on something that's going to be an ongoing process, and it's internal training for our judges, our clerical staff, our security officers, all of the people who work for the court. In particular, it's for our judges, and it's dealing with a concept called procedural fairness, or procedural justice, sometimes it's called. But procedural fairness is about making sure that everything that we do takes into account the people who are before us, so that we don't just esoterically know that these things are fair. We know we can look at it from a more objective standpoint and say, right down to what signs are in our building. If you have a lot of signs up that say, "Don't do this," no cell phones, no chewing gum, no hats, no whatever. What's the first thing that people are looking at when they walk into the courthouse? It's no, right? And so from that very minor thing right up to ensuring that our judges are actually explaining, not only giving a decision, but explaining why they gave a decision. Ensuring that people who have questions have them answered. Even though it takes a little more time, it It ensures that the people in front of us are ensured of not only true fairness, but perceived fairness. That's the first effort that we've engaged in. And every training that we have in our court from a year and a half ago has included procedural fairness components. And those, just to give you an understanding of what procedural fairness talks about, procedural justice talks about, it's first of all voice. It's ensuring that people have a meaningful opportunity to be heard, and that they, even if they have a bad outcome, it has been shown that if they have an opportunity to be heard and are feel like they've been listened to, they don't care what the outcome is really, as long as they know that they've been heard. The second thing is neutrality, and obviously that's the paramount concern to the courts. Respectful treatment of everyone, and ensuring that our authority figures are trustworthy. And those are the main components of procedural justice. Those are the things that are procedural fairness. Those are the things that we're training on, and we will continue to train on for the foreseeable future. The second thing that our court has embarked on, and this is a bit of frustration for me, is something I've been talking about for 3 years, and I really hope that I'm this close to making happen, is a community court. And the community court is a concept that began in New York. And what it does is, the best example I can give you is, right now, if someone's panhandling and they come into our court, pretty much the only thing I can do is fine that person. And if you think about that, I'm fining someone who's panhandling. How are they going to pay that fine? They're going to panhandle to pay that fine. And so we're really just perpetuating the problem of dealing with these people who really have needs beyond the criminal justice system. And so the concept of a community court is, just like the crime strategies unit, is to engage the community in which that court functions, to ensure that that we are meeting the needs of the community that we're working in, and to make sure that it's a dialogue between the courts, because courts are really sort of standoffish. You know, we're the least well understood of the branches, and my goal is to, at least for the Justice of the Peace Court, at least for this community court, to ensure that people within this community know what we're doing and why we're doing it. To give us an opportunity to be another network opportunity for people to get to the services that they need, to ensure that they understand that if you don't pay your fine, yeah, it's going to be a problem. But if you just call us, or if you walk in the door and you tell us, I can't pay my fine, rather than just don't pay it, and then we issue a capias, and then that if you come in and work with the court, we're actually going to be able to resolve the issue and not exacerbate the issue. So that's two initiatives that we're looking forward to.
First, it doesn't like are you able to hear me okay? The first thing I'd like to and this isn't exactly in response to Dan's question, but I think it's important for the audience to distinguish between. I don't presume to speak for Judge Davis because he's quite clearly capable of speaking for himself, but we're judges. We're not members of law enforcement, and I think that distinction needs to be made. I'm not engaged as my good friend Kathleen Giddings and the chief on the investigative end or the active pursuit of ferreting out crime. Judge Davis and I hear cases that are brought to us. We do not proact. We're not proactively out there looking for cases to be brought to us. So I think that's an important distinction to be made, so that those to help inform the dialogue, basically, that's going to go help you know where you may want to direct questions or not. It is probably the case also that my court, and again, I want to say I don't presume to speak for my colleagues. I don't speak for the U.S. District Court, the District of Delaware. I speak for me as an individual human being and a United States judge. So I want that to be clear. Dan mentioned Ferguson and Ferguson, Staten Island, Cleveland. There are a lot of these issues that are on all of our minds. And for all like this, where I would very much want to be able to express a full range of views, I'm going to be a little constrained. Because it is likely that the U.S. District Court, and the issues we're talking about tonight, is going to be the least involved of the actors. Hopefully, I say that with great earnest, I say this with great earnest, that Chief Cummings is correct, and that we're not going to have a Ferguson here, or we're not going to have an Eric Garner here, because then it may well be the case that, like in those jurisdictions where federal grand juries have been active, are now active, and those matters will likely find their way, or have a good chance of finding their way before a federal judge. We don't have that here, and hopefully that won't happen here in Delaware. We do have involvement in criminal justice issues of a rather local nature, and most commonly in the area of handguns, where Ms. Jennings' office, Kathy's office, may make an arrest, or some law enforcement agent may make an arrest, and there's a task force still together, right? There's a group of officials, federal and state officials, that get together, and from time to time determine that a case would be appropriately handled in the United States system before a United States judge. For a variety of reasons, and I'm never involved in the decision-making as to how the case gets to where it gets, but so Kathy can talk about that a little more as to how that happens, but generally it's an individual who has continue to offend in a particular area. Let's say a person who is prohibited from owning or possessing guns or handguns, more specifically. Someone who's walking around on the streets with an AK-47 stuck up their leg and a mask in their back pocket, which would suggest that it's probably at an unusual time of the night or morning. Might suggest that there's something not so good about to happen on that individual's mind. And maybe this is someone, because of past criminal history, that we need to have addressed in the federal courts, where federal laws can tend to be fairly onerous when applied to these types of situations and these types of individuals. So these cases, from time to time, find their way before federal judges. But these, in my view, are in the main, the issues we're talking about right now, local issues, and from the standpoint of local to Wilmington, but local to the state of Delaware. Kathy represents the state. She's the chief state prosecutor. Represents the city of Wilmington. He's the chief law enforcement officer here in the city of Wilmington. Chief Justice Dave is, of course, is a statewide. In terms of justice peace courts, and as he's told you, they have more cases than all courts combined, I suspect, in the jurisdiction. So that's I just want to give you some sense of the federal court's role here, and why perhaps I'm here, because Jack McDonough told me I had to come, actually. But that's okay. If Jack asked, I'd come. But I think it is a role. There is a place for a representative of the federal courts to be at a forum like this. So I'm glad to be here. My head's not in the sand, okay? Even though I'm a federal judge, sometimes people think we put our heads in the sand. It's not true. I'm mightily concerned about these issues. I want to be careful what I say, because see, some of these issues could end up in front of me, and I don't want to have to recuse myself. Moreover, I don't want something that I say here to be misinterpreted or taken out of context and find its way into a matter that might appear before me. We have a reentry court that we have instituted about 3 years ago. It's a fairly new phenomenon, and we're seeing it more and more in federal courts around the country, district courts, where it's very intense experience for an individual who has appeared before me, been convicted of a crime, and been sentenced. If it's a jail sentence, served the jail sentence, and been placed on, for lack of a better word, probation. We call it supervised release. So they come into, if selected by the individual judge who presided over the case, or a U.S. probation officer, they come into in our system, and they get involved in a very intense experience with a U.S. magistrate judge, an assistant United States attorney, a federal public defender, and a U.S. probation officer, and their own U.S. probation officer, and they go through, I forget how many weeks it is, of this very intense experience, and they can actually earn a year off of their supervised release by doing things the right way. I'll put it that way in general. I think we're fortunate in the federal system in that we don't have as many cases, quite frankly, as there are that exist in the state criminal justice systems around the country. We have resources that we can bring to bear to affect programs like this to help people get vocational training, get other kinds of training. That we have meaningful partners, really dedicated partners in the private sector who are willing to employ federal felons. And in this way, we hope to help reduce what is the goal. The goal is to help reduce the rate of return to criminal conduct, sometimes called the rate of recidivism. And so that's the one thing that I can say that may address and be pertinent to the discussion.
At this time, if there are any questions that someone would like to bring to any particular panel member, or the panel, are you able to get up, or I can bring the microphone down to you? Can we do that? No. You know, Kathy, I think you won. I think Kathy won. I think she said it would be about one question before I got somebody to. Thank you.
I wasn't going to say anything. I just can't. I cannot. I'm bursting. Okay, we're here probably primarily because of what just happened. That happens every day, and people just don't know about it. Okay, what I guess I'm asking is, in terms of the new strategy thing, is any consideration being given to a full collaboration with health, education, welfare, You see what I'm saying? It can't be done in just one area alone, okay? The other thing is, I guess, I am old, and I grew up in the South. So where I grew up, the rope was used instead of a gun, okay? Now, I guess what I'm suggesting and asking is, what can we do to stop dancing around black on black crime and killing more times than so-called white untrained policemen killing us, okay? Nobody wants to talk about the real issues. That's a huge issue. The other piece of it is killing in our educational system every day. I even was teasing my good buddy over here, Bishop Morton. I started to wear a shirt in here that said, I can't breathe, but I can't read either. So killing is killing too. And I guess I'm getting tired of academic discussions. We need to get down to the nitty-gritty and talk about what is really happening.
You should be up here. That was marvelous and so passionate. The Crime Strategies Unit, as a prosecution unit, no, we can't do this alone. So your first question is, how are we engaging with social services, with educational community? So we just got formed this year. You need to give us a chance, please. But already what has happened and become abundantly apparent to the people in our unit is that we really can't do it alone. And so with each week, we've grown. So one week, we may be walking around with DENREC because there's some environmental hazards that need to be dealt with. Now that sounds a little silly. The other week, we may be dealing with the Department of Agriculture, talking about can we put more urban gardens in the city or healthy corner stores in the city. The next week, we're dealing with social services because one day, Crime Strategies walked into a house that looked abandoned and there was a young child in there and it was 30-some degrees and they rescued that child. So you are absolutely right. We cannot do this alone. The police cannot do it alone. It is going to take every available agency in the state, as well as the community, to make a difference. And so our partners keep growing. The governor was kind enough to invite us to address his entire cabinet. And we did one day, and he told his cabinet secretaries, every one of them, meet with Crime Strategies, work together with Crime Strategies. Each one of you can contribute to what's going on in this city and make it better. So yes, you are absolutely right. And as we get more experience, we grow and we grow and we grow, and we're getting better and better results. Housing is a big issue. Housing drives crime. The lack of quality housing, the lack of affordable housing drives crime. Abandoned, blighted properties. I've walked on streets in this city and I think we have such amazing heroes, unsung heroes in this city who never ask for accolades, but who are out there every day doing good work. But when you wake up in the morning and next door to you is an abandoned house where mattresses are falling out of it and garbage is falling out of it and people are dealing drugs in it and it hasn't changed over time, only gotten worse, we start to lose hope if we're living next door to that. So housing is a big part of it, and we're looking at housing. You talk about black on black crime, you said it. We have got to do a better job at saving people from being victims of violence. A little 5-year-old girl on Pleasant Street walks out her door to get her scooter and she is shot because one drug dealer is shooting another and she almost dies. A teenage boy at night is visiting a neighbor and he must have walked out at the wrong time from the wrong house, completely innocent on a school night. Coldest night of last winter. He is stripped naked by gang members, told to walk around the block, and then he's shot. We can't live with black on black crime anymore. We cannot. We have to save ourselves. And we can put people in jail, but you are absolutely right. The root causes of all this is what we need to get at. And that's going to involve some really difficult and painful conversations. What we control in our office is this much. And the police department, the same. We can't do this without everybody working together.
If I may, very quickly, that was my own voice that scared me there, for the record, if you saw that. Man, you asked the question about the education system as well, right? So Jack McDonough's right here. Jack came to us after 23 years of being federal probation and parole. He's now part of the Crime Strategies Unit. Jack has helped set up, along with O'Neill, who's one of our members here in the back, a prosecutor. We went out to the school, Christina School District. We met with Ed Mayfield. And we went in there with the understanding that what can we do as an agency to try and help with the schools? How do we get in the elementary schools? How do we start young? Because I don't need to tell you, right? It's getting younger and younger. And so how do we get in there and start trying to do something? Is there something that we can do? Is there a role for us? And one of the things that we went in there with, had no idea we could go in thinking, hey, mentoring, right? But after having a discussion with the experts, the people who know what's going on, there were, how many was it, Jack? 30? 35. They said 30, that's how many we got, or this?
We got 35, we said 30.
They said 30, we need 30 mentors. Jack, O'Neill, Crime Strategies Unit, call through Kathy to just the Department of Justice. The city's about to do the same thing. 35 people lined up, trained, ready to be paired with it at risk. They wanted 30, we got 35. Okay? That's not the answer to everything, but those who are sitting in this room, I wanted to use that as just an example. If you're sitting in this room and you're wondering, I want to do something, there's something else I can do. If you see Jack, if you can stand up for a second. If you see any one of our folks back here in the Crime Strategies Unit, we will help you with that. We will set up, it's free training. It takes an hour a week. Okay? That's a commitment that we're trying to get to. It's one of the things that we're doing. I too have a kid. I have a kid in the Christina School District. I am very well aware of the things that are going on. Okay? Before I get to the next question of folks, and please feel free to come up to the microphone. Come on up, and you don't have to call on you. There's a dark-colored Lexus, ES 350, right? Lights are on. So you know. That was handed to me. So if you have a Lexus, I want to go check it out. While the next question is coming up, if I could one moment, sir, I did get handed a card here. Briefly, the question that was written here was, what is being done about gun laws, regulation, and trafficking, or access to them? That's the question that was posed next, and then, sir, you're up, and then we'll turn over here. Anybody want to handle the drug laws, or I'm sorry, the gun laws, the regulation, and trafficking? All right, Chief, thank you.
To some of the gun laws that are being looked at, the state has just come up with a task force where we're going to be looking at individuals on the front end who are purchasing weapons and getting them out to the streets. Some of those include straw purchases that we're aware of. So those things are being looked at up front. It involves the Newcastle County Police, Wilmington Police, State Police, and I believe the ATF. So we're trying to get on the front end of those individuals who are purchasing guns that make their way to the streets. That's one of the things that we're doing in reference to that.
Okay. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Corey Priest. I'm peer support specialist over at the Achievement Center for the whole commission. I was listening to my favorite player, Tom Brady, the other day, and he says, it's not what's well said, it's what's well done, right? So for me, and I can speak for myself, what's well done is what I'm doing individually. Hopefully, as we do individually, we can make a difference collectively, right? So every Monday and Thursday, I facilitate a group called the Winner Circle over at the Achievement Center. It's a peer-led group for ex-offenders coming home from prison, like myself. It's for men and women. And if I can think correctly, there's no peer-led support group for ex-offenders in the city of Wilmington. And I'm part of the reason why, this is happening for our ex-offenders leaving Gander Hill and Smyrna and SCI and even Baylor. So I have a flyer here. If anyone, wants this flyer and pull aside an ex-offender in the city of Wilmington or in the state to come be a part of our support group, I would gladly welcome anyone to come through our doors over at the Achievement Center. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Scott Spencer. I'm a longtime resident of the Triangle neighborhood. And it's painful to see the label that's been put in our city recently about Murder Town, USA. I know there's a lot of debate and controversy about it, but it is what it is. And I really believe our city can rise above that and find solutions to put that behind us so we can be proud to say that that label doesn't apply to us anymore. I'm glad we have a homicide unit, but I wanted to put out 4 suggestions in terms of short-term, long-term solutions to help improve the relationship and the effectiveness of police working within our community. I know Chief Cummings and I, we've discussed these, but I really believe that we need to develop an investment in bringing down the crime rate in the city with help from resources from the state and the city to develop a pay-to-say system to get information that the police desperately need to not only solve a crime, but to prevent a criminal from creating a crime again. And so we had that label, Murder Town USA. Why not respond to it with an investment to put up on the telephone poles around the city and the city corner stores, posters that say, "We will pay $50,000 for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of someone who commits a murder in the city. We're not fooling around anymore. Pay 10% of that on the arrest of the individual, and do it in a way that is possible with anonymous information. The person collects the reward anonymously." But that to me is a direct response, and the investment is worth it, because the longer a case is open to be investigated as a murder, the more the overtime costs rack up, the more the pain, and the city struggles with that image. Costs us much more than a $50,000 reward for a murder. Put that up and let them know we're coming after you, we're going to catch you, we're going to convict you, and hopefully deter another murder from happening when you know that is seriously in place, that pay to say. And I would put the same thing in motion for getting illegal guns off the street. Yes, to the credit of Wilmington Police and the chief, we've gotten as many as 600 guns off the street this year. But why not put up a $1,000 reward for anonymous information that leads to the confiscation of an illegal weapon, which we know by the serial number or whether it's been wiped off. So the person's paid anonymously $1,000 for each weapon. That'll put some serious heat on the street and all the places the police cannot be. Moving forward in a positive way to get a better relation between the police and our city, we have a number of great events throughout the city that are going to be taking place, certainly as the warm weather comes about. I would suggest to you, Chief, if an event requires the deployment of 5 officers, why not add to the cost of the city? I know, but the investment for the community of 2 additional officers, so that they can have 2 officers at all times just engaged with helping with the event, engaging with the children, and every half hour another 2 officers rotate amongst that detail of just connecting and having fun with the community, talking with the community, in addition to the other 5 that are on patrol. The other 2 suggestions for our youth, because too many of them are ending up in jail, and we have a long hill to climb to reduce the dropout rate that is certainly fueling that crime. The 2 suggestions I have there, we have so many events in the city that many dignitaries and politicians and business officials have attended that are really the hallmark of success. But too often, those who have been caught up in crime never understood that buy-in. What does success look like? So why not have a set-aside at all these events? So if you have a big awards event in the city or with businesses, you have 12 tables. Make sure each of those 12 tables have at least 1 high school student attending the event, so they can see, what does success look like? How do we buy into success? That's what I want to aspire to be, so that we can break this cycle of black-on-black crime, which is a painful tragedy within our community that shows that children just don't understand the respect and pride that they need to have in each other. But by attending such events like this, they can get a buy-in to look what it looks like. And the last suggestion for our youth, there are a lot of businesses that want to do business with the city. They bid on these contracts. Let's ask them to make an investment in their youth by saying, when you bid for business with the city, how many part-time or full-time jobs can you set aside for our high school, our 16 to 21-year-olds to be part of that contract? Let them decide. But then we have some buy-in. We're saying to our youth, we're investing in you. You're going to get an opportunity to see what success is like. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Pastor, if I could ask, I believe, am I wrong? I don't know who was here first. I know he had a line. So if I could address him, and then you're up next, Pastor. Thank you.
Yeah, first, thank you for having the panel discussion. My name is Rob Kiesler. I'm a resident of the Trolley Square area. My first question was directed towards Chief Cummings. I was just curious if you could comment on the reforms that Camden, New Jersey had done with the police force, if you see that happening. And I also want to commend you, because I know I'm not an officer, but I do know, speaking with several of them, the police morale is a little bit low right now with what's going on in the city. I really see more so of a burden on the state, because your department is really just the gateway to the justice system. And there are several states who have enacted certain reforms, restorative justice. Maybe the 3 other members of the panel have heard of them. You've seen, in Delaware, we have around an 80% recidivism rate. So to put that in perspective, if we built 10 bridges, within 3 years, 8 of them fall down, which is a complete disaster when it comes to our criminal justice system. So you're seeing a lot of the same repeat offenders going in and out, and it's breaking up families. So my question to you is, what measures are you taking with members of the General Assembly in order to enact the same reforms that Oregon, Texas, and California have done to bring down that recidivism rate so we can attack it on both sides, not only on the policing end, but also on the back end.
Testing, testing. And in reference to what Camden has done over the last year or so, they've been successful in terms of revitalizing their police department and going to a community of Camden. Obviously, their city was having troubles, so they basically got rid of their police department and started over. And what Chief Scott Thompson has done in Camden has been tremendous. They brought in a lot of technology. They brought in a lot of new officers onto their police department. So he's had an opportunity to mold those individuals and the direction in which he needed to take Camden. And they're having a lot of impact. So some of the things that I saw that he did, because I went to visit Camden, I believe we can bring some of those things to our city that will also have an impact in how we use our technology to be a little bit more effective, and some of the things that we're going to do in the future.
On the restorative justice and recidivism issue, which is an excellent question, in particular recidivism, I don't know if Charles Madden has left the room or if he's still here, but he is in charge of the Achievement Center, and we're a part of that, and I know that the police are a part of that. So once again, not one organization can do it, but the Achievement Center is designed to help individuals coming out of prison and give them the opportunities, the skills, the services they need so that they aren't part of the 75% recidivism rate over 3 years, which is what we have right now. And so we have to do a better job at reentry. The federal system is intense, but as Judge Sleet said, they have fewer people. We have 10,000 felony cases that come into the state of Delaware, come into the court system a year. And so that's a lot. And we just need to do a better job while someone's incarcerated. So if someone is going to jail, then there have to be programs there that make it, harder for them to recidivate. Educational programs, job skills programs, and Department of Correction Commissioner Rob Koop is working extremely hard on that with the General Assembly as we speak. We have to do a better job while people are being housed. People sometimes are housed, often are housed, especially violent offenders, pending trial. And so if they are incarcerated pending trial, we need to do a better job there at giving them the skills so that when they get out, they're not reoffending. It is so hard right now. When you leave prison, you have nothing. Often you can't even find a house to live in. You're precluded from living in a lot of places. You don't have a license. Now you have an identity thanks to the good work of Commissioner Koop in the General Assembly. Now maybe you can get a driver's license because the General Assembly this year took away the disability to drive if you have a drug conviction. So, we're working around the edges on this. And the Achievement Center will just do great things, but it's not the panacea. It's going to take a lot of dedicated resources to help reduce recidivism. I'm confident that we can reduce it, but it's an intensive effort. And restorative justice is critically important. I think that's a lot of what Judge Davis's community court will be involved in.
I just wanted to say that's absolutely correct. I mean, restorative justice is not necessarily the underlying principle of community courts, but the community can ask for it. I mean, and the community is really a part of restorative justice. For instance, community court does involve a lot. I'm on the front end of the system. I deal with small, low-level offenders, and quite frankly, that is very often the place where we can make the biggest difference, where we can, just like cleaning up the street, if you put people back into the community and instead of saying we're going to tell you that you have to pay a fine for your panhandling, that you're actually going to have to invest in the community that you were somewhat terrorizing on a low-level scale, then you can see what you did. You can take responsibility for it, but then you can also help improve that community. So it's not exactly restorative justice, but it is the concept of taking responsibility for what you've done, making sure that you see the community that you're living in, and trying to make it better from the offender side as well.
Thank you. I have Pastor D, and then I have a question from a card, and then this gentleman here.
Thank you. I want to digress just on for two things, and I have three questions for each panel member, with the exception of one question for each panel member, with the exception of Judge Davis. He's the only one up there I haven't worked with. But Judge Davis, I do want to say I think you're wrong that when you describe the majority of people as being satisfied with just being explained to and not necessarily caring about the outcome. I think they do care very much what you're going to do, and their family members care as well. And it doesn't require a response, but I just think that may not be accurate in terms of. And also, if we could, I know Kathy is very genuine. I mean, Ms. Jennings and Scott certainly. But it's my hope we can get away from the keep terming this dilemma as black on black crime, because we've come to understand that any area where any ethnic group has the most unemployment, the most lack of education, the most drugs and what have you, if all of that was going on in the white areas, it would be white on white crime. If it was happening in Chinatown, it would be Chinese. It's American crime, and we got to start using the language so that we don't polarize people who may think it's not my problem, because after all, it's black on black, and cause black folk to understand that they are a part of an American problem. The question specifically, I'll give them, with regard to the AG's office, Ms. Jennings, the minority, one of the issues that's being raised and has been raised is minority representation in the Attorney General's office across the country. And Delaware, like most other states, don't have enough minority or black attorney generals. So what are we doing in Delaware, since we recognize that that's a problem in Ferguson and everywhere else? Why do we have to wait for a march here? We need to start hiring some black attorneys in the Attorney General's office so that there's a proper balance, because right now there's an imbalance, and I'd like to know if there's been anything done on that note. Also, I'd like you to respond to the fact of the matter is we don't have to wait for Ferguson to happen here, because Ferguson is already happening here, maybe not to the extent, but certainly there are incidents that have come before your office, and I'll just use my own. I believe that prosecutors who investigate police that they work with on a daily basis for having committed crimes or wrong deeds against the citizens is a bad idea. And my personal experience, as you know, was I was chased by 4 white men in a car one night, late at night, up Market Street. They had ski hats and reached as though they had guns. My wife still suffers from fear each time I go out at night. It was investigated. Wilmington police tracked the car down. They were law enforcement officers, as you know. Attorney General's office investigated, but the investigator used to be the internal affairs officer for the Department of Corrections. The conclusion was, as yourself and the others explained to my wife and I, to her tears, well, these guys were on some kind of drug raid. They were part of the governor's task force. That don't explain how they chased me, a black man, from 40th and Market all the way up Market Street, made a U-turn, and we were frustrated and disappointed that the conclusion of the investigation was nothing. Nothing was done to them. They were not, they were not that I know of, they were not punished, and my wife and I were basically told, listen, they were part of the governor's task force. The comment they made to the Wilmington police officer were, we were just having a little fun. I could have had a heart attack, I could have crashed into somebody, or maybe they were up to something more diabolical. So if we don't get honest in here and talk about the real circumstances surrounding these type situations, Ms. Jennings, then we're going to continue to come to meetings like this and talk about everything except the reality of what's happening. And I'd like you to respond to those two things. Chief, with respect to the police, is there anything being done in the way of training? And I'm thinking cultural communication and compassion training for cops who deal with the community. Because they may not be shooting people down, but we certainly have, and you have in your department, a number of professional standards complaints that are investigated by police, where people's grandmothers allege they've been cursed out, where there are all kinds of problems. So it's obvious that many of the white officers don't understand the culture of the black community. How can we have that be the case in New York and that be the case in Ferguson, and we talk about all kinds of training, except the training that will make me sensitive to the culture of the people that I'm dealing with, so I won't fear them and they won't hate me. So I'd like to know what we're doing in the Wilmington Police to deal with that. And finally, Judge Sleet, I know my own personal experience in your court as an advocate has been that you've been very welcoming, and federal probation has as well, to those of us who come in as sort of activists at the sentencing phase. And I think it's been very helpful, at least in the 3 instances I've been before you. Those gentlemen have all never reoffended. And you've recognized the relationship and even allowed us to have input. The last time we had something like that in Wilmington was called Black Man Development Center. They had the ability to go into the state court. In fact, I think the state court may have had a contract with them. And at the sentencing phase of things, if it was that the AG's office was looking for a way not to incarcerate people, then the Black Man's Development Center would be a part of that sentencing structure, and they would go with the Black Man's Development Center rather than go to prison. So I'm wondering if there's anything in this new reentry court that could resemble that, because frankly, there are a lot of people out here who could do a much better job of convincing. I'm convinced that if one person could have spoken to Mr. Gardner in New York, because he was selling cigarettes to make money to feed his family. One person that understands the culture, understands the hustle, even if it is a cop. You know, one person could have talked that man into doing something different rather than 5 cops jump on him and choke him as they did and he lose his life. So those are the questions I would like answered.
Good evening, Pastor. Pastor Day, I consider you a friend and a colleague, and so I am not going to go into detail about the case involving you. I will say that in my opinion it was thoroughly investigated by an individual in the Special Investigations Unit of the Attorney General's Office at your request, and that there was a conclusion made that there was no crime committed. We then met with you and explained all of the factual findings that were made. I know you're not happy with that. I'm sorry you're not happy with that. But that was the factual finding that was made. In terms of our hiring practices, we have formed a hiring committee, and they go to law schools throughout our region, and we are actively endeavoring to hire attorneys of color, because quite frankly, we can't be at our best unless we are representative of the communities we serve. And I agree with you. We need to do a better job of that. We need to recruit more people. And so we're working on it. Be patient because we're working on it. But it is so true that people, like I'm half Cuban, right? And yeah, and probably nobody knows that because, nobody knows it. My name doesn't have a Spanish last name. But when I see issues that pertain to people in the Hispanic community, I see it through a somewhat different prism because that's what I am. And so that's true of all of us. We need to represent the people we serve. And so couldn't agree with you more. We need to do a good job of searching for qualified people from all races and truly represent the people we serve because we do see things from a different prism and we get a much better perspective when we have that involvement of people in a large way. So thank you for pointing that out.
Kathleen, do you see that that's why we're marching now? Because you just said what the prosecutors in Ferguson said. They concluded Mike Brown's dead, but no crime was committed. They concluded in New York the man was killed, but no crime was committed. And you guys concluded here, yeah, he was chased up the street. Yeah, they did it. All right, black, no crime was committed. We're tired of no crime was committed. We need to be protected and respected and treated like anybody else would, because I believe if those officers had chased a white guy down the street late at night, no matter who they were, somebody would have been fired.
And we could talk about the facts all night because I don't believe you were chased down the street based on what we found. However, having said that, we do prosecute police officers when they break the law. We do, and we will. So one could have a debate about the facts in your case, my friend, but I do not believe that those particular officers broke the law in that instance.
Again, good evening, everyone. In terms of training and having cultural awareness done in our police department, a lot of times people want to call it sensitivity training. When I was appointed chief, I didn't think sensitivity training was appropriate for what the issues were. So what I did was I brought in individuals from outside, and we changed it to cultural awareness because we have a number of different ethnicities that live within our city. So once you start doing training around cultural awareness, it doesn't make you understand all the issues at that point. But when you get to a point of listening to others, that you've come from a different perspective, you have different backgrounds, a different frame of reference, you can then develop a sensitivity to the different cultures, but we cannot teach you how to become sensitive. But we can make you sensitive to the issues once you understand about the different cultures. Another thing in terms of when we investigate our police officers, since I've been chief, our internal affairs division is more representative of what our city appears to be. So we have a number of individuals in that unit who, again, are aware of the issues that are occurring in the city. So we made it more representative of that. And I will tell you that when our officers do violate our policies and or procedures, they are dealt with, and we contact the person who is the complainant, and they are notified. We don't make all of those findings public, but the person who made the complaint is notified. Another thing that we've done, we have done a stronger recruiting effort to make sure that we hire individuals, again, that represent our city. We had a recruiting process just recently where we had over 500 and some odd individuals apply to our police department. Out of that, I had 123 individuals left as they went through the process that I was able to pick from for a class that just started Monday. And I will tell you that we're very proud, and that class is represented by 9 white males, 8 black males, 5 white females, 4 black females, 4 Hispanic males, 3 Hispanic females, and 1 Asian female. So, again, we are sensitive to what our city needs are, and we're making efforts to make sure that we represent that.
You know how to find me. You don't have to wait for something like this to call me. I think what you were talking about makes sense. It might be something that can be worked into the reentry process, and it may be the case that it would be good to sit down, for me to arrange a sit down with our Chief U.S. Probation Officer John Salvaji and Magistrate Judge Christopher Burke, and we can do that. So you just call me.
And something to that end, Pastor D, the Delaware Center for Justice, I believe, is forefront on, now this is bail issue, and I know that group that you were talking about did a lot of work with the front end with bail, and we want to, my court sets 99% of the initial bail in this state, and we are desperately looking for opportunities to have alternatives to detention. If we're now doing risk-based bail setting, and so when the risk is lower, but it's still there's a risk, it would be very beneficial to have somebody there who would basically vouch for that person and say, I'm going to make sure that they're there, I'm going to be there. And by the way, I didn't mean to be inarticulate previously. You're absolutely right that the result does matter. It's simply that the study that I was quoting is like 45 pages long, so I couldn't, but it's that voice is the most important thing to people in the criminal justice system, and not that the results don't matter.
Thank you. Just quickly, the good folks, Apostle, I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but they did grant me an extra 10 minutes here, but I was told we have to be done at 7:30. My view is staring straight at this clock here. We have 20 minutes left. If I can just have a show, I know I got the gentlemen who are standing here, but if there's anybody else who has questions, here's what I will suggest to you. If you write them down on a card, I have one person handing me 5 cards here. If I could have that person give me their email address, we will answer those questions. But in terms of fairness, if we could go, I believe this gentleman was here, and we're going to go as quickly as we can to the final questions with the idea, folks, that we will drop at 7:40 here, but these forums will continue. So whatever questions we don't have, this is the start of the dialogue, and we hope to have different forum members and different topics. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Adam Kramer. I'm currently on federal probation, Delaware State probation, and Pennsylvania parole. I'd like to point out with this reentry court that there is 92% of 300 federal probationers are gainfully employed. And I think that has to do to an ex-offender is helping somebody who understands. He understands what I go through as far as getting a job, getting everything I need. Now, on the flip side, with the state probation, I've been out of prison for 11 months. I've had 3 different probation officers, and it's a problem. I'm frustrated with it. And there's more state inmates coming through, and that's where more of the recidivism is coming through. Because these state inmates don't have the opportunities, as the federal inmates, we do, fortunately. I mean, there's less of us. And it's the thought that comes to my mind with the state probationers. There's no opportunities out there. I wasn't aware of any opportunities coming through the state probation, and it kind of feels like a dead end. And I know a lot of guys that are coming out of the state prison, they feel like they have nowhere to turn, except for to go right back. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Kramer. Mr. Kramer, if I can ask you at the end of this, if you could talk to Jack for us here, we'll see if we can follow up on some of your thoughts. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Thank you for being patient.
Good evening. This question's for everybody. Recently, and first of all, let me just thank the police for the march and all your efforts, and you do things well. We want to say God bless you and thank you for that also. Thank you, because if something would happen to Bishop Morton, God knows what we'd have done. Am I right, Apostle? One, the NAACP, IMAC, and the Denominational Ministers Action Council has called for a Civil Rights Commission judge to oversee so that this commission would be an independent branch so that a Ferguson or anything that needs to go to that needs to go to a grand jury would be handled by these folks. Yes or no, Chief, yes or no, judges, yes or no, Kathy, would you support a commission like that? That's one. Two, Chief, the numbers now, I think 70 to 30 police officers, white to minority. Do we plan to get the minority numbers up, and how much? I know you said you had a class, I know you said you were excited, but I did not hear numbers. So I'd be interested to know the numbers. Three, Chief, some time ago, I was able to, working along with Dr. Saunders, when our probation officers were off the chain, that's what I kind of call it, but, you know, going into people's houses and doing some things that they shouldn't ought to have been doing. We were able to bring in some specialists from outside and create cultural sensitivity training. This team, or this training that you have, is composed of people who are from the community, people who look like us, people who have the sensitivities that we have. If so, then how did the community get involved with that? Because we need, Hicks Anderson used to show up when the folks graduated, he'd push them, and if they didn't like it, then they didn't fit the streets. I'm not saying that we be that radical, but I'm saying we need something, all right? So I just kind of like that. Three, Kath, over in New Jersey, your counterpart, Kim, I forget her name, does something called Moneyball. And what you familiar with that? As it pertains to restorative justice. And we're talking about a person, and what got her attention was a person who had stole a blanket, and they incarcerated that person for 6 months, and it cost $9,000. Well, we got folks in jail here, $50 for child support, $100 for this, and you know, low-level offenders that do not belong in jail. You know, what, if anything, along the moneyballing issue, along the alternative sentencing piece, is your office going to do? Third and final, we can't do none of this stuff, Dan, without money. Judge Sleep, without money. I don't know about these folks, but I come to know that you don't have no money, you just lip slapping. And we just got some money from the houses. God bless, y'all forgive me, I'm just coming off the chemo, blame it on the chemo. But I know we got that money this year from the suing of, am I right, Cap? Well, don't act like y'all don't know. Come on, help me out here. The mortgage, right? The mortgage money.
Foreclosure settlement.
Mortgage foreclosure settlement money. Hallelujah. All right. Don't want to see all of the mortgage foreclosure settlement money going somewhere else. Why don't we take some of the mortgage settlement foreclosure money, since we know that if a person has decent housing coming out of prison within the 48 hours, then the chances are they won't go back. Why don't we take some of that money and do some private-public partnerships and get some housing up off the ground and put some of our people in some housing as they come out of what we created the Eye of That program.
May I start? It is so good to see you, and I'm glad you're doing well. I couldn't agree with you more. I think what we have done is fought long and hard to get as much as we could of the J.P. Morgan mortgage foreclosure settlement money to go toward reducing crime and housing-related issues. Because, quite frankly, the architect of that settlement, who's sitting here, Matt Littner, and our fraud Matt, you want to stand up, Matt? He's a good man. He's bringing a lot of money into the state. It is crafted, the settlement agreement is crafted so that the money that is coming into Delaware, has come into Delaware and JP Morgan, is here on Bank of America, has to be put to remediate past harms from the housing crisis. That needs to be put into poor neighborhoods where there are abandoned houses, where there are blighted houses, because curing that reduces crime and makes everybody's lives better. So I could not agree more. Hats off to Matt Littner for making it happen, making it possible, and we will continue to fight.
How much is that, Matt?
Well, Matt, tell us the total.
How much is that, Matt?
The total amount of money that's come into the state from three different, well, it's actually four different settlements. It's a national mortgage settlement, and then we settled three separate actions against three separate banks. The total money that's come into the state, if you include consumer relief, people who got their outstanding mortgages reduced, is $180 million.
Thank you, Matt.
There's actually a significant cash component of that the state has now to make decisions about how to best allocate to improve hard-to-hit neighborhoods throughout the state. We are working on that with the governor's office.
We're working on it. We would like to call on you to work together, because it needs to go to housing, it needs to go to the poor areas, it needs to go to our crime-ridden areas, and that's the intent.
Okay.
Thank you. For timing, and sir, you were up next.
Moneyball is an intelligence-based system to teach prosecutors better who are we just angry with because they're doing petty stuff, and who are we really afraid of. The people we're really afraid of should be in. The people we're just kind of angry with shouldn't be in. And so we need to do the job of parsing through that. And you do it by really looking at dangerousness and people that we can work with to get better on the outside. So nobody should be in jail because they stole a blanket. That's first of all, it's a grave injustice. Second of all, it just shouldn't happen, and it's a waste of money. So money's scarce, and our prisons are full. And so Moneyball's the way to go. We're working on it. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jordan Hines. I grew up probably for 10 years of my childhood on 11th and Spruce, and I want to thank you, Chief Cummings, for having such a diverse police force. I have a question though directly for Ms. Kathleen. I was curious in regards to Pastor D's question that he took from me. I wanted to enhance it even more because I wanted to know the opinion of the Attorney General's office. How do you guys feel about special prosecutors coming in? Because I feel like that's really pivotal for our city. As much as we have diversity for our city police force, it's really needed to have special prosecutors involved, considering the fact that, as Pastor D enhanced, that our prosecutors statewide work with our city police on a day-to-day basis. So if there's issues that are going on that even our own city police force don't even know the cultural awareness about, why do we not have our AG's office involving a special prosecutor outside the state?
That's a very good question, and so I can talk to you about the way things are right now, and then we can start a dialogue tonight, because we are starting a dialogue tonight on whether it should stay this way or whether it should change. And that dialogue is beginning, so I can't give you an answer right now, but what I can tell you is
That's more like just an opinion I would like.
with police-involved misconduct right now, that's not investigated by the criminal division, which is what I run. It's investigated by another area of our office called special investigations. So I don't control them. We pretty much wall ourselves off if there's a police-involved shooting. So it's not prosecutors investigating in that circumstance. It's a different area of our office. And they come to a conclusion and they issue a report that goes directly to our chief deputy and the chief of staff. So to the extent we are able, we wall ourselves off from that process so that because we are dealing with police officers on a day-to-day basis, we're not part of the decision-making in terms of whether that police officer has committed a crime and should be prosecuted. So we can have, and I encourage us to have going forward, a robust discussion on whether that's the best system or not. I can just tell you that's how we do it now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lauren Jones. I scarcely know where to start here either. Thinking of all the discussion tonight, I don't envy any of you guys up there. It's a tough job you're doing. But one thing that concerns me with public officials is their attack on our constitutional rights in trying to facilitate what you're doing. Second Amendment rights are under attack. I understand we want to go after the violent with the guns and the illegal gun owners. The Fourth Amendment rights are under attack. Your right to bail are under attack. Your right to presumption of innocence is under attack. So I think before we do anything, you guys need to sit back. Every public official takes an oath of office to protect, preserve, and defend the Constitution. We need to go after the criminals and not the law-abiding citizens. And I'm really concerned with what has been going on. It costs, I saw somewhere, about $46,000 a year on average to house a defendant in jail, okay? I saw somewhere online, 46, not that everything online is accurate. And I've talked to some people who are on probation and parole recently who were at the halfway houses, the Plumber Center, and so forth and so on. And their opinion of the system that they have now is that it's a joke. You can't have a part-time job. You can't drive. You can't, there's a lot of things, and I can get their names and phone numbers or information so you can go talk to them. But you really need to talk to some of the people that are at the Plumber Center and find out what the problems are as far as them getting gainful employment. The system is set up against them. So when you get out of jail, like Kathleen Jennings said, is you're up against the wall. You're up against the wall. You basically, you're in there, you done broke all your ties to your family members and friends. So when they let you out of jail, where do you go? You're sleeping on the street if you're not at the Sunday Breakfast Mission, thank God for them, or one of the homeless shelters. Again, it's $46,000 a year to house these individuals. Why aren't we using some of that money? They used to have a training center down at the DCC where you learned carpentry, you learned bricklaying, and you learned plumbing and some of those skills. We need to get these defendants some type of technical training at the very least so that when they get out, they have a skill that they can market. And with skill and education comes opportunity. That should be the thrust of what these programs are looking at. But I will say, Kathleen Jennings said again, there are 10,000 people, felonies each year. 10,000 people, that's just in one court, in Superior Court in Delaware, okay? So we look at all the other courts, we're looking at tens of thousands of people that are arrested and charged with criminal offenses every year, okay? Out of that, certainly thousands of people are, the prosecutor looks at the charges and throws the charges out when they realize it doesn't rise to the level of what they were charged or the situation wasn't what it was. The judge throws it out when he thinks the case isn't warranted, and the jury throws it out when innocent or not guilty. So the presumption of innocent until proven guilty, we have to maintain that, and we've been in the battle recently with the states affecting bail. And Kathleen, you know that story, and Judge Davis knows that story, and a few other people knows that story. But again, okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting the hook, so.
You're not the only one, sir. I'm the one getting the hook.
Okay, I apologize.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Judge.
We're just about out of time, and just a couple of things. I'm not sure just what the gentleman meant by being, and I'm not inviting a response. The presumption of innocence is under attack and this and that. I only speak for my court and this judge. But the First Lady who spoke directly to it, to this point, alluded to it. I'm tired, I'm sorely tired of seeing young men come before me who look like me, who look like myself. And I don't bring them there, but they end up in front of me and I have to put them in prison because of sometimes god-awful things they've done. But that road to me started a long, long time before they ended up in front of me. And there's something that is wrong inside our own community. Right? Now I'm an African American, right? So I'm talking about the African American community, but it's more than that. It's poor people. And Pastor D is right, and I know my very excellent and good friend, a long-time friend, Kathleen Jennings, was using language that you took exception with. I take exception with it as well. I don't like black on black. I don't like the word minority. Okay, and you've used it in the other panel. I use the term so-called minority. It seems to me that's more accurate than given the current demographics in our nation. Okay, but I see Senator Mark Rose Henry here. I saw Senator Townsend here earlier. We have our esteemed councilman here. Hopefully, there's going to be another forum. And because we're on the back end, people up here really, we're on in many instances in a very real sense on the back end of these issues. Law enforcement officials and judges, we're if you want to look at it this way, a band-aid, and so to speak. And these issues are deep. These issues have deep roots in this nation. And unless we're willing to address them, as has been suggested, meaningfully, we're not going to get them. Not with the panelists up here. Okay? And citizens have to be willing to invest. Our money, we have to be willing to tax on it. Our police officers don't make enough money. Our teachers don't make enough. We don't value. We value entertainers. That's right. Okay? We value football players, and we pay them millions and millions. But people who have the power, like that, this man carries a gun. He could shoot me dead tomorrow. Okay? Yet he's not. I guarantee he's not making the money he should be making. Okay? So these are things that we all need to think about. It gets back to what the good lady said when we started this thing. Okay? That's all.
Thank you, Judge. Now,